everyone, good morning, and thank you so much for joining us here at Raymond James for the group's second pitch. We are so excited to host you all. My name is Grace Blankenship, and I'm one of the senior talent advisors on the campus recruiting team. So welcome, we're thrilled for you to hear from the students today. Thanks for taking the time to get to know them a little bit as well. I'm going to hand it off to Lynn Pippinger, who's one of our distinguished alumni and Raymond James legends. So welcome, Lynn.
Good morning. I started at Raymond James in 1969 when we were a 7-year-old company. It has grown a whole lot.
Take the microphone.
Yeah, there you go. Hear you a little better.
As I said, I started at Raymond James in 1969 when the team was formed. Bob James, his son had just graduated, Tom James, had just graduated from Stetson Law School, and he came on board and he said, well, if we're going to grow this company, we need some help. And so he went out and he hired Bo Godbold, Bob Shucks, and myself. We all went in different directions. I had operations, which was just anything that didn't make money. That's how I defined it. I had HR, facilities, client operations, securities operations, accounting, you name it. If it didn't make money, it was money. And I was here for 43 years. It was a great career. And for some of my projects, I wound up the last 4 or 5 years working in IT on very large, complex systems. And so every once in a while, I get a recall to come back and sort of help them again. And when I left, I asked Tom James, and at that time Tim Eitel, who headed up securities processing here, I said, what if I just took my laptop and dumped it onto my PC so that I have all of this information? And they said, sure. And every once in a while, I have to go digging around in there to tell them what certain codes mean. I got a call about 2 months ago, 3 codes that they had not a clue what that meant to the system. So I'm still on call. I'm also a graduate of USF St. Petersburg, and my MBA is from USF Tampa, so I'm on both sides of the bay, and usually I do 2 bowls, but I can't because I got this microphone. And I want to welcome you all to Raymond James, my second home, and I have watched it grow, and thanks to Raymond James, I've been able to do a lot of gifts to USF. So, thank you.
Thank you, Lynn, so much. And now I'd like to introduce Leo Chen, Dr. Leo Chen, the director of the ASA course.
I'm going to go without the microphone, if it's okay. So I'll start with this. There's a saying on Wall Street, buy the rumor, sell the news. So I'm going to spread some rumors here. These are the best and brightest students in town. Once you hire them, you don't want to sell them. That's the best part. Why do I say that? This is a unique program. We have real money managed by real investment professionals, and my background is also a partial investment in the investment world as well. And more importantly, we have a large pool of investment professionals out there as our board members, as you can see here. And we have the full support from Moomba College of Business, from USF Foundation. Everyone is passionate and wants to help these students to succeed. As you can see from here, we have graduates that are working at Raymond James already, and their quality, as you can see from first-hand experience, are top-notch. So without further ado here, I would like to get this presentation started. As always, we present twice a semester in the fall semester and 4 more in the spring semester. Every time we present 3 stocks, and you get to vote at the end. Each stock will take 15 minutes presentation and 15 minutes Q&A, and you feel free to ask any questions you like. So we are going to start with cake, in this case, Cheesecake Factory.
Dessert first.
Dessert first, yes.
Thank you all for coming. My name is Rafael Gregorian. This is Gabe Rodriguez, Ms. Sarah Tenenbaum, Mr. Gary Walker. Dr. Chen, hard to follow that speech, but again, thank you. Ms. Pippinger, thank you very much for pushing for the program. We appreciate it. We are Cheesecake Factory. So we'll start with our price forecast. As the last closing price, we have $43.46. Our intrinsic value is $52.29, and during our 2-year target hold period, we expect a minimum of a little bit of a 40% return to $61.49. So let's go into our investment thesis. So here we talk about 4 different points. First, the growth opportunity. There's an opportunity for 300 stores domestically. Now that's going to start including Canada as well, and the first store is opening up in Toronto, but we'll touch on that a little bit later. Number 2, they are ideal stewards of capital. Essentially what that means is all free cash flows goes back through share repurchases and dividends, and they just increased their dividends by 21%. An excellent management team. Now, as Ms. Pippinger said, she started in 1969 at Raymond James. A couple years later, Cheesecake Factory was born by Mr. David Overton, another legend in history. So what we're doing with Cheesecake is Mr. Overton took his mom's recipe, something he followed with nostalgia and with love. He did that recipe, it grew to a company, over 190 stores, domestic and international. And the last one, just the cream of the crop, just a little cherry on our cheesecake. It's a prime candidate for a private equity buyout. And we'll touch more on that later, but its EBIT multiple is trading at a little bit lower than all the previous companies, as Burger King, Restaurant Brands International, Eat, Dave & Buster's, different companies that were bought out before. So let's talk about the industry. As you can see through the graph, every decade it grows about 40%. Now, as you can see with the last decade, from 2010 to 2017, it's actually grown 40%, and it's only been 7 years. So it's only going to continue to grow. And the top 2 segments is Cheesecake's forte. We have the eating places, about half a $1 trillion, and then bars and taverns, about $20 billion. And this is my favorite slide. This is the marketing. So the reason why I like Cheesecake a lot is their marketing is excellent. They're very good at it. They're considered guerrilla marketers. 1% of their expenses is used on marketing. Why is that? How is that possible? How do they reach through so many channels? Social media, excellent. Whoever manages a social media account, we got to give them a pay raise. Because they're reaching over 100 million people through social media channels, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, surprisingly, and Facebook, of course. And then next we have, everyone knows Keeping Up with the Kardashians. If you haven't heard of the Kardashians, I don't know what to tell you. They actually featured a special about Cheesecake Factory on their show. Each episode averages about 2.5 million people. I know, it's crazy. They're in their 15th season. I don't know what's going on. And then, last but not least, everyone knows who Drake is for the most part. Drake is a triple platinum artist. He's been on the Billboard Top 100 for the last 8 years. So since 2009, he's had hits. His latest album, named Views, was streamed over 1 billion times on Apple Music. That is the most any album has ever been streamed. Now, what does this have to do with Cheesecake? So with Views, it had over 1 billion streams, but the great thing is there's a song called Child's Play. And in that song, he says, "Why do you have to fight with me at Cheesecake? You know I love to go there." That was the most retweeted line in 2016. By celebrities, by Drake, and circling back to Canada, the first Canadian location opens up in Toronto at the Yorkdale Mall, which averages over $1,000 per square foot in revenue. And he's going to be there. But only you guys know. And us.
So, thank you, Ralph. So, as Rafa was saying, First Cheesecake Factory is going to open on November 21st in Toronto. That's their first Canadian location. After that, they're going to open between 20 and 30 more in Canada over the next 5 to 7 years. So those are company-owned restaurants, just like they have company-owned in the U.S. They own around 207 restaurants, including their subsidiaries, the Grand Lux Cafe and the Rock Sugar Asian, and 193 of those are the Cheesecake Factory. They grow about 8 restaurants a year because David Overton, the CEO, has a very strategic placement plan. There's 20 scouted locations, and out of 20 scouted locations, only 1 gets chosen for building and operations. This has been working for them because of their growth every single year, even through 2007 and 2009. Each restaurant brings in about $10.7 million in revenue, 505,000 unique checks. As for their international growth, they have 17 licensed locations, including China, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and Mexico. These licensees are able to grow more restaurants in other countries and regions such as more of the Middle East, Central and Eastern Europe, Thailand, Singapore, and many more. So their brand growth. They have a minority interest right now in North Italia, which is a small scratch kitchen restaurant. They have about 11 locations, and Flower Child, which is a vegan, organic, farm-to-table type of restaurant, and they have about 7 locations. The Cheesecake Factory is able to completely buy out both of these restaurants within the next 5 years, and this is going to be huge diversification for them. So they're growing their consumer packaged goods. So you go into Publix, Target, or Walmart, they have frozen cheesecakes everywhere. So also they have an agreement with Barnes & Noble. So when you walk into Barnes & Noble, which I do like 10 times a year, you go into their cafe, which I also do 10 times a year, and they have their Cheesecake Factory cheesecakes in the little window, and every time I go, I have to buy some because it's amazing. So yeah, it's really good. So a normal Cheesecake Factory is around 10,000 square feet. They are developing a concept of a smaller half-size box size of about 5,000 square feet and faster service. So this will also grow their restaurant. Their competition is Darden, California Pizza Kitchen, Brinker International, and Bloomin' Brands. So not one single restaurant or multi-restaurant-owned company has more than 10% of the market. The Cheesecake Factory holds 2% of the entire restaurant market, but they also bring in the most revenue at $10.7 million per restaurant. And like I said, they have about 505,000 unique checks. And also, as you can see here, their checks on average are around $21, and they are growing their checks about 30 to 40 cents every single year.
So, like Sarah just elaborated upon, the Cheesecake Factory operates within a highly competitive, fragmented market. So at the end of the day, what differentiates cheesecake? First topic in that discussion is a leader of menu innovation. With a menu of over 250 unique menu items, they have the opportunity to not only drive foot traffic with seasonal options every 6 months they update the menu, but they also have the option to raise prices. And with a menu that large, they have the opportunity to sort of hide those every 6 months when they update. Now the second point, I'm sure you all have heard of the Amazon effect, and a little bit later, I'm sure you'll hear about the Target effect. But here, I want to go ahead and talk about the cheesecake effect a little bit. Despite a highly competitive price point compared to all of its peers, when you go to the Cheesecake Factory, you're going for an experience. Your night becomes an event. Your entire night revolves around the ambience, service, and hospitality of the Cheesecake Factory. And it encourages you to go back time and time again. And with that said, the Cheesecake Factory also has best-in-class operational execution. It's one of the most efficient restaurants within the entire industry, and we'll get into a little nitty-gritty about that in just a moment. And finally, at the end of the day, what makes the Cheesecake Factory the Cheesecake Factory? The cheesecake. And so with that said, our bakery operations. The Cheesecake Factory, in the truest sense, is a factory. They own 2 distribution centers in which they distribute their cheesecakes to all sorts of third-party retailers, including Publix, Barnes & Noble's, Target, and Walmart. And of course, whenever you walk into one of their locations, you see that beautiful display full of delicious cheesecakes right there, all come directly from the bakery itself. And that said, we also lead the industry in dessert sales. 16% of our checks go directly to desserts. And so what that means is we have the opportunity to offer a completely creative and controlled, unique product that operates at a higher margin than our competitors. And of course, like I said earlier, in terms of operational efficiency, in terms of inventory, the Cheesecake Factory only has a 4% waste yield, compared to an industry average 10%, with our nearest competitor wasting around 8% of its inventory. And that said, makes it the leader of food innovation. And they do that not only through their top executive team that inspires a culture that's dedicated to productivity as well as efficiency, but as well as their technological advances like kitchen managing operation system, which orders products at a certain point to make the entire process
from start to finish, a much easier, simple, and automated process. And finally, menu innovation. Like I said, 250 menu items. What's the benefit in that? I'm sure we've all gone out to eat. We have that picky friend in the group. We don't know what we want to get. Go to the Cheesecake Factory, 250 menu items. It's a no veto vote. Everyone's going to have something at the Cheesecake Factory that they're going to like. And that said, within that large menu, like I said earlier, they can hide price increases because they update the menu every 6 months. And they offer seasonal changes, which actually drives foot traffic because, you know, fall comes around, you want your pumpkin spice cheesecake, you can go right in there, make that purchase.
The summer salad really good too.
Of course. And then following off of that, the Cheesecake Factory consistently outperforms the industry in terms of foot traffic. As you can see, going back to 2010, we've consistently beat the competition, including a soft 2017 in which there have been weather challenges that the entire industry has faced across the whole. We have still managed to beat the rest of our competitors.
So we're going to talk about technological advances now, and with that being said, to counteract the decreases in foot traffic that Cheesecake is experiencing, they have contracted so far 70% of all of the restaurants for third-party delivery through Grubhub. By the year 2020, we expect that to be 100% for all restaurants with third-party delivery. On top of that, we expect the margins to be improving by a certain amount because of the reduced labor costs that takes effect with the delivery services, as well as AI-controlled kitchens, meaning that once they're running low on inventory, let's say for dairy or chicken, the AI will put the order in already to replace the chicken. Now, there is some risks, however, with Cheesecake. The first one being Cheesecake is a consumer discretionary spending. That being said, for our projected forecast period, we expect the economy to continue to grow or stay stable. Number two is minimum wage increases. Again, with the technological advances, we don't expect it to have as much of an effect on overall margins. However, it is a risk that we should be worried about. Our third one is commodities inflation. And with that being said, the majority of the menu, 64% to be exact, is made up of dairy and chicken. So if dairy and chicken were to increase significantly in price, then it will pose a threat to Cheesecake. However, they have long-term contracts in place, about 10 to 20 years worth of hedging for these chicken and dairy inflations. Our last one is mall traffic, and as Garrett said, mall traffic has been decreasing significantly over the past year and a half. However, that takes into consideration all malls. All malls being said, Cheesecake Factory is in malls considered Tier A. Tier A malls are malls like International and Mall of America. Those malls are usually malls that have Apple stores, so they have reasons to bring people to those malls. And Cheesecake is right there along just to absorb the money that's going in. So for our model, we used a free cash flow to the firm with a WACC of 8.79%, a 10-year beta of 1.06, and risk premium of about 6.5%. With that being said, we have an implied share price of $52.10 and a 2-year price target of $63.12. So we decided to test our sensitivities for different aspects of our model. We looked at additional stores to EPS, how adding a new store would affect. Overall, it affects it by about 2 cents per EPS. So if a store were to be closed, it will decrease EPS by 2 cents. If it were to be open, it would increase by about 2 cents. Our next one was top line sales to EPS. We wanted to see what would happen to top line or EPS if we changed our top line sales by a certain percentage. A 1% decrease in top line sales has a 4-cent EPS change, while in the other direction, an increase in sales of 1% will have a 4-cent increase in EPS. Our licenses, so our international licenses, those add for each 1 cent in earnings per share. However, it also has the added effect of decreasing or improving margins, right? Because we are licensing our brand, we're selling our brand, we're not actually doing any of the work. So our last one is expenses to EPS, and this is the most sensitive of the sensitivities that we looked at. And the expenses, a 1% change in expenses, either up or down, has a 39-cent change in EPS. So I would like to thank you all for showing up, and I'll open the floor for questions. Yes, sir.
My question had to do with for your estimates here, and your earnings estimates are quite a bit higher than the street, which I'm sure you know, and which I think that's fine as long as you can articulate where you are different than the consensus. But and I'm looking at page 8 on your report here. If I'm looking at the sales growth forecast, you got quite aggressive sales growth forecast in the out years, 18 and beyond. Like the high single digits to low double digits. So I was wondering if you could put some color on what your growth algorithm is behind those numbers. The way restaurants growth is basically unit growth and same-store sales growth. And so I have a hard time seeing how you can get to 9 to 11%.
So with our expectations for the model, we took into consideration the added effect of, the added effect of, opening up new factories over the course of the United States, as well as in Canada. So in this picture, we have the population density of Cheesecake Factories across the United States. This one's in Canada, and the growth opportunities in Canada are about 10 malls, right?
We have, to touch on to what Gabriel said, we've done our research, and there's 15 malls that produce over $1,000 per square foot of revenue, and those are considered the higher end malls, the tier A for Canada. So they're focused on, once the success, or the impending success of the Toronto Yorkdale Mall, they already have 10 to 15 locations already scouted under Mr. Overton's formula that he's going to start sweeping the country with cheesecakes. So that adds about $11 million per unit. And that's their low estimate. Cheesecake's a lot more popular and more scarce in Canada. And again, Drake is the icon for Canada.
And to show you a growth opportunity for Canada, here's what we have so far. November 27th is the opening day of the Canadian cheesecake. Here's our potential. So one store in each province, except for the top 3, because I learned recently that they're covered in ice.
And to touch a little bit upon that, looking at the revenue forecast, the first couple, going into 2017, it has been one of a softer year, and so we're expecting that a lot of that demand, because of weather, things like that, was not necessarily destroyed, but displaced going further into fiscal year 2018 and beyond. And then, of course, as Raphael and Gabe mentioned, a little bit of a growth story about the potentiality of new stores being developed domestically.
Right, but I think you said the model is to grow about 8 new restaurants per year. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So, if you do 8 new stores or 8 new restaurants per year on the base of what is that, 208, something like that, that's a 3-4% growth in restaurants per year. So to get to 9% revenue growth, you basically have to have a same-store sales growth of 4% plus to get to your top line growth estimates. That's in the face of same-store sales has been negative lately. I think I just looked at this last night. It looks like on the earnings call that they just had, they were saying that, as you pointed out, mall traffic has been a headwind and probably be a 50 to 100 basis points headwind to revenue growth, to same-store sales growth going forward. I think, as you pointed out, most of their restaurants are in mall locations where there's been a traffic challenge there. So again, I'm still struggling to see how your top line estimates are so aggressive versus what the rest of the world is thinking.
So, to follow up with that, do your numbers include any restaurant closings? Because I assume the company closes restaurants throughout the year as well.
Yes, ma'am. So within the last 5 years, Cheesecake has not closed one restaurant.
So going forward, you expect
We expect no restaurant closures.
Because they have such a strict, the reason why, obviously that seems a little aggressive in nature. Obviously you would assume them to close it. It's a 10,000 square foot operation. But again, David Overton, his formula, he doesn't share it, his steps. there's a strategic way he approaches this, how to develop restaurants and how to work with the leaseholder, the location. I mean, he has like a 15, 20-point plan that, again, even some of his board members, they don't know, but it works. So he goes off that. So he focuses on slow growth. We pitched Alta for our first pitch. It was 100 stores every year. Cheesecake is the exact opposite. They're not doing plug and play and hoping it works. When they put a store somewhere, they know it's going to work.
And then you also mentioned that they're looking at testing a smaller footprint.
Yes.
So would it be more conservative to, instead of using a basing your sales growth on a per unit growth, doing it instead on a per square foot growth, since the newer units are coming on at a smaller footprint?
Yeah, that's a good approach we could use. There's one problem with that, however. We know average check size that they projected for the fast casual concept. However, we don't actually know if that concept is going to kick off just like the P.F. Chang's concept did.
But you can calculate sales per square foot, and then use sales per square foot and assume and estimate how much the incremental square footage each year.
Okay, that's a good point. Thank you.
Mr. Burke?
I think you guys did a great job. It really hangs together well. I'd only disagree with calling it discretionary. I agree with Sarah. This is not a discretionary item, this cheesecake. This is a staple. But just trying to play through some of the skepticism that you're hearing here about the growth. If you look at, just compared to restaurants in general, a good restaurant brings about 4% to the bottom line. A great restaurant brings about 5% to the bottom line. And they all have extremely high operating leverage. So your numbers show more than 5% to the bottom line, although you did mention the operating leverage when you talked about the change in EPS from changes in expenses. So you did mention that. So what I'm having trouble getting my mind around is how they can be taking all this free cash and buying back stock, as you said right at the beginning. And I checked your numbers, because it didn't make any sense to me, but in fact that is what they're doing, if your numbers are right. How they can take all this free cash and just give it away, essentially, by buying treasury stock, and still have money to do the growth at a higher growth rate than the industry as a whole is projecting, and especially considering the stock is down 2% today based on their earnings call. So how can we reconcile the need for growth, the difficulty of growth, and the fact that they're plunging all this cash into places that don't create growth?
So what they do first is that they invest back into the company, and anything left over with free cash, they return to the shareholders.
True free cash.
Through free cash, yes. Through their dividends as well as stock repurchases.
So you're saying prior to the stock repurchase, they have enough free cash to do this growth, even with the headwinds and everything
Maintenance
else?
and growth, yes, sir. They have to obviously maintain their current standard. They have to keep the cheesecake in line with, their factory and in line with the restaurants, in line with what they see. It's like Chick-fil-A. When you walk into a Chick-fil-A, you can go to any Chick-fil-A in the country. What's the difference? The people who work there. The restaurant, its operations, its food, everything is 99.9% the same. Obviously, there's outliers, but they focus a lot on maintaining their current standard. And we want to actually point out as well, this company is a very good company at making money. And they're very good at rewarding the shareholders. And
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what you said. They're better than good at making money, because they're bringing more than 5% to the bottom line, in spite of their operating leverage and in spite of the fact that that's extraordinary for a restaurant. So, but it has to keep up in order for your other numbers to make sense.
Yes, sir. And one thing they use to protect that profitability, again, we were mentioning the artificial intelligence into the kitchen staff and technologies. Think of a DoorDash button for Amazon. I'm sure some of you have DoorDash buttons. You press it when you feel like it's about to get low, because Amazon will automatically link it up to a product and it'll send it to you. What they're developing is something similar to that. They run algorithms, they have their own computer programmers that they hire on the payroll to make sure that once it hits a certain point, it's going to automatically reorder the products. It's going to be sent there. They are the #1 in transportation, logistics, and operating efficiency. There's 250 menu items made from scratch. I didn't know they were made from scratch. I like to call it fresh frozen, but this changed my mind. I was a server at California Pizza Kitchen at one point, so I knew how our food was prepared. I thought it was similar. It's actually quite the opposite. And when you have a staff over 50 at any given moment and have a 4% operating waste yield, that's incredible. That's number one in the industry, and they have, I believe, the largest menu.
So if I could just summarize everything, essentially you're making a big bet on management. He's this Uber exec. He knows how to execute, go out and do everything really well. So I'll say overall, your presentation was really good. I think your risk slide was spot on, hit literally every point that is going to be brought up. But I don't think you did a good job of mitigating a lot of those risks though. So talking about the sensitivity of 1% changes on EPS, fiscal year, it didn't end yet. I don't know if it incorporated or not, but we had about Cheesecake had about like a 40-50 cent decline in EPS. That has to do with Gabriel, what you were saying, that was saying operational costs have a lot more higher effect on the bottom line than other companies, correct?
Correct. However, for the most recent year, for the most recent quarter, in the quarter 2, their actual earnings their EPS did not decrease because of changes in cost. They actually decreased because of weather. Their major hubs are Texas,
Which is underwater.
Yeah, well, I mean, weather's the get out of jail free card on an earnings call. So, look, I can get it. Obviously, this year was a lot more different than past years. So, okay, maybe there's definite validity there. But I think those top line growth numbers that you have are extremely aggressive for, we talk about the death of malls concept. I mean, okay, they are located at tier A malls, but I'm really having trouble with those growth numbers. Especially, you have a high level of conviction. I don't really deal in what ifs, but what happens if there's something in CEO or the C-suite and this stock is done? So, is there any type of like continuity program? I won't even touch on this being a PE buyout. It's not a private equity buyout at all.
I'd like to challenge you on that.
All right, so I hit you with a bunch of things. Pretty much it's growth information, and let's go with PE buyout.
Okay.
So
You want to
Really
answer?
quickly, please.
Okay, sure. Gotcha. So for PE buyout, the reason why we mentioned that, now again, this is not the crux of our thesis.
Right.
This is just kind of like the cherry on top. Just if all else fails, let's say CEO, all that falls apart, we have the private equity buyout. Now the reason why is, again, this company is very good at making money, ideal stewards of capital. They're very smart about how they allocate their funds and what they do. And again, they reward the shareholders. Now let's look at the recent buyout of Ruby Tuesdays. Ruby Tuesdays. I don't know the last time I went to one, but the private equity firm paid a 20% premium on top of Ruby Tuesday. About $3 a share.
yeah, but if that happens, you're making a huge assumption. If that were to happen, has management even talked about are they having conversations with buyout
IR is
firms?
amendable to a buyout. We spoke with the investor relations. They are amendable to a buyout. David Overton only owns about 8% of the company, so it's not just because his mom started it doesn't mean he has control over the whole company. There is a board, and if the buyout is strong enough, and everything's strong enough, everything is what they like, they're amendable to doing it.
All right, everybody loves dessert, but we have to move on. So students never get enough of consumers. Next one, Target.
Okay, good morning everyone. Thank you for coming and thank you for that delicious food. My name is Dennis and I'm joined by 4 of my wonderful colleagues from the Student Managed Investment Fund. This is Matt, Darren, Miley, and Jesse. Now, the one thing we've really learned from working in the Student Managed Investment Fund is that finding value in investments is difficult, even in normal conditions. But if we have a record bull market, it is even harder. So as our research progressed, we turned to the beat down valuations of the consumer discretionary sector. And in the process, we found a great bargain opportunity. Our research has revealed that the Target Corporation, a dividend aristocrat and one of the most well-known mass market brands in America, is trading at a steep discount to its industry peers. Our research shows that this company has a potential $93.29 fair value, indicating 57% upside on current market value. Now, the difference between Target's valuation and the industry valuation, even as beaten down industry, is quite pronounced when you take a look at Target's numbers versus that in the industry. In nearly every single metric of valuation that we looked at, and we looked at quite a few, such as price per earning, price to book, price to sales, also EV to sales, EV to free cash flow, and EV to EBITDA, and almost every one of them, Target is trailing the industry average. This led us to conclude that not only is Target trailing industry average and its comparable peer group, but also its historical multiple as well. Now, keep in mind that the Target of 2015 Target of currently is a very different company from the company that was in 2015 when it suffered a net loss. And our numbers believe, and we believe, that there is a potential for a turnaround in Target's fortunes, as evidenced by the more quantitative factors, such as an impressive 24% return on equity, a sustainable and growing 4% profit margin, an impressive $4.8 billion in discretionary free cash flow, and an industry-leading dividend yield of 4.16%. To summarize, we believe this is a great opportunity to get in on a stock, one of America's best-known brands, at a discount not seen since the recession.
Thank you, Dennis. So with the realization that Target is currently undervalued, let's explore some of the factors that have created the investment opportunity that Target presents. Since about 2015, Target has experienced a price depreciation of 40% due to the decline in earnings, an unprofitable Canadian division, and a lackluster pharmacy segment. In 2015, Brian Cornell entered the scene as Target's new CEO, and he immediately began restructuring Target's operations. The Canadian division consisted of 133 locations, which generated a $2 billion pre-tax loss in both 2013 and 2014. Because of this, Target decided to discontinue the division in 2015, generating a $4 billion loss, which led to decreasing net income by $4 billion, which led to a $1.6 billion loss. The pharmacy segment, which consisted of 1,672 pharmacies, along with 79 clinics, was sold to CVS in 2015 for $1.9 billion. Today, CVS operates the pharmacy segment under a perpetual operating agreement with Target. So with the past behind us, let's take a look at the turnaround that is beginning to take place at Target today. Target's plans to stimulate revenue growth include increasing same-store sales, renovating stores, introducing higher margin products, and omni-channel integration, all of which will benefit from favorable economic conditions. So if we look at the graph on your right, we can see that quarterly year-over-year revenue growth is already showing a strong reversal back to satisfactory levels, which is the result of the early implementation of these catalysts. So next we're going to dive into greater depth to see how exactly Target is using these catalysts to continue the revenue turnaround into the future.
So Target's main driver for revenue growth is the ability to increase its same-store sales. Now this begins with a $7 billion capital investment, the majority of which will be spent on renovating current stores as well as opening up newer small format stores. So to date, Target has renovated 70 stores, and in each of these stores, they have seen sales increase by 2 to 4%. Now they initially planned to renovate 600 stores, however, due to the early positive returns of the program, they have increases and accelerated to 1,000 stores by 2020. The focus of the renovations will be on increasing the customer experience and enhancing the customer experience in order to drive foot traffic into the stores. So Target so far is starting to roll out new small format stores. Now these small format stores are less than 50,000 square feet in size. They are located in densely populated urban and suburban areas, as well as around college campuses, and they have products that are tailored to the local market. Now some of the benefits that we see from these smaller format stores is that they have 2 times the sales per square foot of their normal stores. They have high single-digit sales growth, and they also have higher margins due to a reduced workforce and lower overhead costs. Target currently has 55 of these stores, and they plan to open up 80 more by 2019. So another strong opportunity for Target lies in private label brands. So as you can see from the chart on the right there, private label brands are growing at 3 to 5 times the rate of national brands. So Target saw this, and in 2016, they released a private label brand called Cat and Jack, which is a children's apparel brand. And in just 1 year, they saw revenues of $2.1 billion, which exceeded even the most optimistic of expectations. So Target has further plans to release 12 more private label brands by 2018, and they expect revenues from these brands to exceed $10 billion. In addition to private label brands, Target also has exclusive brands. And one that they're most optimistic about is a recent exclusive brand called Hearth and Hand with Magnolia, which is a collaboration with TV superstars Chip and Joanna Gaines of Fixer Upper fame. So Fixer Upper's season 4 finale was the second most watched show of the entire second quarter of 2017, and it drew in 5.2 million live viewers. So we expect the popularity of this show to drive revenues in this brand And people on Twitter have even announced that they've blown their whole entire paychecks on this brand after 2 days of release.
One of Target's key revenue drivers is its omni-channel integration, which is the integration of its online sales with in-store experience. Target's online sales experienced an increase of 32% year-on-year last quarter. One of Target's innovative new programs is Target Restock, which is its next-day delivery service. Target is opening this service in 8 new markets very soon, which forms 1/5 of the total US population. Moreover, it plans to expand this nationwide by 2018. Target's Drive Up will allow the customers to shop for items online but collect them in store within the next 2 hours. Moreover, Target also recently acquired Brand Junction, which is a technology and carrier network company, in order to increase the efficiency of its delivery service and provide new services like same-day and next-day delivery. Brand Junction's software will allow it to find the most cost-effective and quickest methods of delivery, using its 700 well-established connections all over the United States. Moreover, Target also recently partnered with Google Express, and now customers can shop for Target items on Google Express as well, hence adding another channel to its newly developing delivery system. It has been realized that visual search is going to hit the mainstream digital platform and form 50% of all sales by 2020. Taking this into consideration, Target has had exclusive agreement with Pinterest Lenses. Pinterest Lenses is a digital tool that will allow customers to detect items in the real world and find similar items on Target. It has been proven that retailers that use personalization strategies like these experience a gain in sales of 6 to 10%, which is 2 to 3 times more than other retailers. All companies face risks, and Target is no exception. Target depends heavily on its brand for its sales, and hence it needs to maintain its reputation and the consumer loyalty that comes along with it if it wants to maintain the success. Moreover, it also needs to manage changes in consumer preferences and changes in consumer spending in order to maintain its market share. But we believe that Target's diversified product mix, along with its flexibility to change in consumer spending and preference, allows it to minimize these risks significantly.
All right, so far we've mainly been talking about company-specific drivers for Target's revenue growth. And while there are a lot of those, it's also important to talk about the macro environment which Target operates in. As we've seen here, retail sales have been up annually about 4% since 2010, with around 4,000 new stores opened in 2017 alone. On top of that, economic indicators like consumer spending, retail sales, consumer confidence, and discretionary income have all been climbing healthily since the recession in 2008. Now, I'm going to kind of talk a little about the total retail sector. As you can see in the graph to your right, it's total retail in-store and online sales. So right now, in-store retail sales make around over 90% of total retail sales in the United States, and that's roughly the total amount of sales in retail, around over $3 trillion as of 2016. As you can see there, online sales make up roughly less than 10%. And I know everybody's probably heard of the Amazon effect. I know retail is kind of beaten down lately, and mostly because of Amazon kind of entering into the retail space. Have you ever heard of the Target effect? I know we've talked about this a little bit today. Where you go into Target, you go for one item, you buy paper towels, but you go and you buy 5 or 10 things, you end up spending your whole paycheck just like when you go into the Hearth and Hand. So, as a total, we see in-store we see in-store retail sales actually climbing. And in a PwC report in 2017 that took a look at the macro view of retail, we're actually seeing in-store sales increasing alongside online sales. And for Target specifically, we've seen in-store sales and online sales growing hand in hand, not cannibalizing its in-store revenue. Now, to value Target, we created a DCF model, or a discounted cash flow model, utilizing a couple assumptions: a WACC of 8.13% and a terminal growth rate of 2.37% based on the 10-year Treasury yield. We arrived at an intrinsic value of $93 with a 2-year target price of $97. So, in summary, we believe that Target's growth initiatives and its omni-channel integration, backed by favorable economic tailwinds, will accelerate Target's revenue growth to our target price of $97.92. Thank you, everyone. Now, welcome any questions from the audience.
Thank you.
It's almost all over the
Sir.
So it sounds like the business has been doing a really good job kind of trying to keep up with the challenges that they're running across. But it seems like they're just running faster on a treadmill. Like they're moving to try to keep up with a world that's changing. But what's the reason for Target to exist 10 years from now in an Amazon universe? What's their competitive advantage versus lower cost, easy to compare universe?
So you're absolutely right about the statement that Target is a changing company in a rapidly changing industry. Now keep in mind that Amazon is, and as we had that chart previously, the one assumption that a lot of analysts make is that Amazon online sales is completely destroying retail, but that's not exactly true. Now, Target has never needed to exist at the floor bottom prices of a Walmart or the online presence on Amazon to be successful. What Target needs is to integrate that in-store experience that we all know and love, and also the online sales segment, which is definitely not as good as Amazon's, but it is improving quickly. So the reason Target will exist in 10 years is because that in-store segment is never really gonna go away. There are just some things that we really need to go in the store to buy. Like I'm not gonna, I don't know about you, but I don't know, I just don't feel right just ordering my clothes online. And there are certain things that I do need to go to the store for. And because Target has a pleasant in-store experience, and because still the vast majority of sales are in store, that is the reason that is one of the many reasons that Target will exist versus Amazon. As for competitive advantages, there is one major advantage that Amazon does not have that Target has, which is often overlooked, which is a wide network of in-store locations. And even then, Target is changing the model. It is changing some of these locations so they will be, by 2019, pulling double duty, and they will be used as delivery hubs for their delivery service initiatives.
Hey guys, really good job. My question, having worked at Target for 5 years, I know a little bit about this company, and my first question is on the market share on page 2. I'm just curious as to how you came up with this market share for department stores, because I know personally Target has never owned Top Spot.
Sure. So basically, to get the numbers we have there, we kind of use recent industry reports to kind of generate information for us. And that right there is more of a department level scale based on their research, kind of compared to like JCPenney, Macy's, and that kind of stuff. It does not really directly comparing it to like Walmart or Amazon necessarily. So in the department store space versus the mass market merchandisers, which the Target is, they do have a greater hold on like that segment, but not so much on like the mass market merchandisers.
So we're saying more like in the textile, clothing, apparel?
Sure, yes.
Okay. I would just suggest that you lay that out a little bit more clearly, because from an overall market share, we all know Walmart's the giant here.
Yeah, no, I apologize for that. It's actually hard to get industry information without spending $6,000 on one report. We kind of do what we have to
I get it.
deal with. Mr. Grillig?
I think this is a case where you have to look beyond the numbers, even though I really love looking just at the numbers. And the reason is, Target has reinvented themselves so many times, I've lost track. And so it makes me skeptical. In fact, when I used to teach an MBA finance course in Minnesota, and that's where they were headquartered. We had one of the top Target, I can't remember if it was the treasurer or the CFO. We had a top finance guy come address my class one day. And students were captivated. It was so interesting, even almost as interesting as you guys. But the thing was, he didn't describe Target. He described Walmart. So here's what we do. We do this, and what he was describing was Walmart. And the problem is, they're not Walmart. And so that led to one of their first reinventings. They reinvented themselves after they had the big data breach. They reinvented themselves after they had to close all the stores in Canada. And now, my God, 4,000 stores you say they're opening? So I have trouble believing, I have trouble having faith that they know what they're doing after all these reinventions. But even more to the point, I have trouble seeing all the free cash flow you're showing, given the difficulty of inventing all these stores and having them be successful without maybe a lot more investment. So talk to me, stay on the strategy and tell me how they're going to make these stores successful and still have all this free cash flow.
So basically, first of all, the 4,000 stores was in general for retail. And so like you said, like Target has to reinvent themselves, right?
Oh, you weren't saying 4,000 Target stores?
No, correct. No, sir.
Oh, okay, I misunderstood.
So the majority of their stores.
Oh, that's a relief, actually.
Yeah. The majority of the stores that are opening are going to be like smaller format stores. So like I said, they're going to be investing about $7 billion over like the next 3 years towards remodeling stores and opening of new stores. So like I said, in the last 12 months, they've actually generated $4.8 billion of the free cash flow, which has been pretty consistently strong. And so, in addition, why does Target, they're not reinventing themselves, so what they really rely upon, like we said before, is like their brand loyalty. And so basically, what they have is called a red card. It's like their Target debit and credit card. And we've seen those penetration numbers increasing every single year very rapidly. So what this measures is basically percentage of sales that is paid for with customers using that card. And it's gone up from 20% 3 years ago to now it's at 25%.
But they give you a 5% discount based on that card,
They
so
do,
that's
yes.
going to cut into the bottom line.
Yes, absolutely. And they've had this program out for quite a long time. And so as we've seen, profit margins dip for a little while. And we saw a big decrease in revenue from 15 to 16 in Target. And that was due to their pharmacy sales going down by $3.8 billion. However, they've seen a strong turn on in the last couple of quarters, a really strong reversal of the sales trend. So we do believe that they have, the ability to maintain their margins. Like I said, they're also releasing the private label brands, which will play on, once again, the brand loyalty. So if people want to pay, they'll pay a premium for Target's products, and also Target's producing these in-house, which will also lower the production costs of those products.
Moreover, why we think that it's going to continue to generate revenue is because even though they know that they are facing increased competition with Amazon, they still believe that they can hold on to their in-store brand experience that they provide. So a lot of things that Target is coming up with right now they are the first ones in the space. So for instance, as I said earlier, for Pinterest lenses, Target is the first one to do that. I mean, they are the first retailers to bring visual search into their online platform. And along with that, they strongly depend on their holiday season, and their holiday lineup for this year is amazing. They're opening 8 new brands within the next month for their holiday season. So I think they are coming back really strong, and I think their in-store experience, the brand loyalty that comes along with it will take them along with it.
What do you mean by 8 new brands? They're private brand, 8 new products, or,
yes.
or completely new ideas?
No, they're private label brands. They are planning to open 12 new ones in 2017, and 8 of them are coming before the holiday season. So
The stock is down 2.25%, worse than Cheesecake this morning.
Can you guys go back to your first slide? I think it's the first or second slide. There we go, right there. I think that's your story. Just leave that up there for a while. You're doing a pretty good job of convincing me, and I hope others in the room as well. I think it's key to hit on, we're buying this for a 2 to 3 year holding period and not 10 years out when Amazon will take over the world, them and Google, Skynet, everything. So I think you're doing a really great job at that. And drilling down into the financials, it really doesn't seem too difficult to achieve those goals, and it's really because of, unfortunately, the past 3 years of when the company has been a reset of themselves. So you're looking at 2018 expectation numbers that were really back in 2014. So it's like you were going 3 years in the past with these all new implementations, strategies, some key purchases to be able to deliver logistically. So the ultimate question on sales growth, though, is I have a problem with it being that high. And I understand so far out it's difficult to assume the sales growth, but 3% might be a little more than they're capable of doing. I get the same store or the comparables over the next few years are decent, but if you look back 2013 to 2017, they've really never been at the consistent 3 mark. Like in 2013, they've been at 5%. Great. Next year down 3%. Next year up 2%. Next year up 1.5%. 2017 abysmal, down almost 6%. So further reinstating high conviction on the growth. The private label, operational efficiency, and then just making smart bets.
Yeah, we also see, so like you said, online sales are only 4.4% of the business, so they have a lot of room to grow in this area. And so with the restock program, it's like $5, you can ship a whole entire basket size. So what this does is the average value of a basket ordered online is 4 to 6 times that of in store. So as we see online sales increase as well, and like we showed, it actually hasn't cannibalized. Can you see that slide? It actually hasn't cannibalized foot traffic. Foot traffic actually went up 2.1% this last quarter. So as the online segment grows, we see a lot of room for opportunities there as well. It's not a main driver for revenue growth. Like we said, it's mostly same-store sales, you know, and also the small format stores. But this is just going to be like a little bit extra on the side for Amazon or for Target. So
I think it's just one quick point to that too. I mean, I think it's also important to understand too, like with the store remodelings, and there are about 1,000 of 1,800 of the stores are going to remodel next couple of years. We're actually seeing the 2 to 4% increase in revenue per store, and actually in the small format stores, are actually about double sales per square foot as well. They're about to open on 130 of those next couple of years too. So that's definitely going to add to it as well, I believe.
Some follow-on questions to those points. So on the online sales growth, where do you have that projected? I know it was like less than 5% of their sales now, but what is that factored into your model for some of the growth? And then to your second point on the store remodelings and the newer openings, it looked like they owned majority of their stores in the real estate. So how are they going to these smaller store models without, what are they doing with it? They have the store, they have the square footage. So how is that factoring into those remodels, and what's the acceleration rate of those remodels? And how does that affect, obviously there's a lot of upfront costs in doing it.
So just to kind of reshift with exactly the conviction on those numbers, and we really do see that these smaller format stores are put into areas where they're demographic focused. So with that smaller square footage, they have lower overhead costs. Wages are lower. There's more self-checkout counters, things like that, so they can have lower operational efficiency, which can help drive that bottom line number a little bit with lower costs.
So are those smaller stores the newer stores that they're building, or is that part of the remodel?
Yes, those will be the completely new stores, which is predicted about a little over 100. It'll be 1,000 store remodels, which also with the ones that have been done, which is about 55 so far, are seeing about a 2 to 4% increase just in the remodel stores alone. And they're seeing with the newer format stores that have already been implemented, they're seeing about doubles the sales per square foot. So
Do you know what you're attributing those increases in the remodels to, or what they are at least as far as that growth in?
This is just better customer experience overall. Basically, they changed the layout for everything. They made everything a lot more easily accessible, made people able to get to their items they want a lot faster. So they've actually added more entrances right to separate areas, walk right in through all the clothes. They've added a lot more entrances as well. And so another thing we see is that they're really increasing the grocery business. And so what that will do is drive incident on purchases, like we said about the Target effect, right? So basically, they've hired 2 new executives, one who used to work for Walmart and for Kroger and Sam's Club, and another one who worked for General Mills. So that's also going to be adding into our same-store sales. When they remodel, making the groceries a lot more accessible. People are going there for groceries more often in a week or a month than they do for regular grocery shopping, which is leading to incidental purchases as well.
So just a couple other feedback questions, or feedback points. I think you guys did a great job laying out the case here. I think that is a good value play. The concerns I have with Target in general is that it seems like they're a copycat. They have a great brand, kind of the higher end of this mass retail market, but everything they do is a step behind where the competitors have been. I don't think that mitigates your case here, but I think it's a concern. I was going to mention, as you talked about groceries becoming a bigger part of their market, I can't tell you how many advertisements or emails or spam I get about somebody who wants to go buy my groceries for me and bring them to my house, and so that I haven't seen Target roll out that service. You're seeing certain things they're doing here, but my wife and I have 2 kids, so we fit this demographic who shop at Target a lot. We make a lot of trips to Target. We get a lot of boxes in the mail from Amazon. So I think they have to identify. You get a great point. When they make it in the store, you tend to buy 6 things you didn't need. If they can make sure those 6 things are near the front, like that increases their odds. So I think there are some strategies there. But I do grow a bit concerning as these smaller targeted stores, as you mentioned, right? I go to Target because hopefully they have the thing that I can't find quickly on Amazon, and if it's not there, then my likelihood to go back the next time is less. So
just to touch on the groceries real quick, they actually do team up with a company called Instacart.
Okay.
So they actually do 2-hour grocery delivery. It's right now it's mainly in the New York area, but they're actually looking to expand that as well.
Good to know.
Sorry, just one more point.
Sure.
When it comes to things if you go to Target and you don't find things, they have recently eliminated that problem as well. So if you go into a Target store and you realize that it's out of stock, the salesperson will immediately order it for you online and ship it to your home.
If you could find a salesperson.
Yeah. I think, and my point was less of it being out of stock. That's usually not the case. It's just that if they're targeting the demographic and the items on the shelves, smaller locations, they tend to have less, less products in general. So and I do echo his comment on finding the salesperson, and I know you talked about electronic checkouts. Like, I hate electronic checkouts.
Me too.
That's why I go to Amazon if I want to do an electronic checkout. It's a lot easier. I don't.
Yeah, mine's more of an observation for both this team and the cake team. Since the big question here is sales and your sales assumptions, and there's a whole lot going on with your sales. And without, one suggestion I have is just really building a sales model. And for this particular one, it should include the difference of what happens with sales on a per square foot basis at the remodel stores, the smaller format, the online sale, and have a separate one for online sales. So really try to understand the unit growth dynamics for this company. And then the other part, from an evaluation perspective, instead of doing a sensitivity analysis based on your DCF assumptions, maybe do your sensitivity analysis based on your sales and margin assumptions. Because that's where the variability, I think, is going to be, where you could be proven wrong.
Can we borrow you for our next pitch?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And you have your up earlier?
That's right. We move on to that.
Okay.
So it wouldn't be a student presentation without a little tech industry. So, Instructure. If you guys have been a student in the past few years, or faculty like myself, or I think some corporate also uses this company, it's really interesting. Students will tell you from first-hand experience why they like it, or they don't like the other competitor.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for attending today's presentation. Really happy to see you all. My name is Mark. This is Justin, Daniel, Megan. They represent Instructure, the leading provider of cloud-based learning management software, or LMS for short. And it's mostly known for Canvas. It's a higher ed product. We believe the future growth of Instructure can yield approximately 24% of annual return for next 2 years. According to our investment thesis, the world is changing. Tech ed is a new innovation field. The new technological advancements in that field will benefit Instructure as traditional education ceases to exist in that way. Also, we expect that Instructure will remain its innovative leadership in the market by cross-developing flagman and supplemental products. And as I talked about higher ed, legacy systems such as Blackboard have been seeing a huge decrease in market share because institutions want to see something more efficient, more user-friendly, and they switch to products like Canvas very rapidly.
So a little bit about the business. Instructure was founded in 2008 and went public in 2015. It offers a cloud-based learning application ecosystem for education institutions and corporations through its platforms Canvas, Bridge, Arc, and Gauge. So Canvas is a learning management system that allows students and teachers to interact with their coursework online with helpful tools such as their user interface, their platform tools, and their third-party solutions. Bridge is a human capital management platform that aims to streamline workforce training through online learning. So about Bridge, Bridge has the largest total accessible market of all of these platforms, giving Instructure a lot of room to grow within the corporate sector. Arc boosts both Canvas and Bridge with its video-centric interaction platform to boost online learning, and Gauge boosts only Canvas through its exam data analytics platform. So its clients, it has over 3,000 clients, none of which make up more than 10% of the company's revenue.
So now that you've heard that Instructure is the fastest growing LMS provider out there, let's highlight how big this industry really is. So in 2016, it was valued at approximately $5 billion and is expected to more than triple in value to $19 billion by the year 2020. The broader tech industry is poised to grow from this, as more companies are realizing the benefits of shifting towards cloud computing, recognizing the benefits in scalability, growth, innovation, and most importantly, cutting down costs. This graph over here highlights the forecast of software as a service, or more commonly referred to as SaaS models, throughout the years. With the increased offerings of human capital management, learning management, and even customer relationship management applications. This is why we believe Instructure to approach a balance between its rapid growth and finally achieving profitability within this space.
So as for where the growth will come from, we believe that the K-12 market, the higher education corporations and international is the main forward driver. In K-12, there's 56 million students in the U.S. And based on how Instructure would price per student, that's a lot of revenue. In the U.S. in higher education alone, there's 20 million students enrolled in higher education in which we believe that an LMS is necessary, that being an institution that has over 500 students. For corporations, we believe that mid-sized corporations or corporations with less than 10,000 employees will be the target market, especially since obviously there's more outstanding LMS software in the corporate base. So we're kind of trying to undercut that and attack the smaller market. And internationally, we feel that right now 14% currently comes from international. There's a lot of expansion there, and we aim around 20% by 2020. So as for market share, you can see specifically in higher education, Canvas has continued to grow from around 7.7% to roughly 22% from our earliest data set in 2013 to 2017. We believe that this growth will continue. As you can see, Blackboard, its main competitor, is actually falling 7%, and Angel was previously owned by Blackboard, currently does not operate anymore, and also at 7% in 2013. This is the main fuel for Canvas's growth. We believe there's a reasonable assumption to have roughly 30% by 2018 and 40% by 2020.
So a little bit about Instructure's competitors. Blackboard, as mentioned by Daniel, is currently the market leader in the learning management system industry, but has been losing market share because of its old-fashioned hosting format of learning management systems. Moodle is more popular than Canvas internationally, which is a market that Canvas is trying to penetrate into, but it lacks innovation within its platform for several years now, according to consumer reviews. D2L, or Desire to Learn, is the most popular LMS platform of Canada, but other than the irregular jump of growth from consumers moving from Pearson's LMS termination, its adjusted growth is rather stagnant. All right, so about Instructure's economic moat, it can be best highlighted by its backlog and by its R&D initiatives. So the company currently has $213 million in backlog, defined as non-cancelable amounts to be later invoiced over the lifetime of their contracts. Switching out of these contracts can be highly inefficient due to the excess amount of time and capital needed to retrain an entire workforce on a new platform. Their R&D initiatives are the most compared to all of their known competitors, with the goals to improve their software's ability to respond to problems faced within the communities that they serve. They use consumer-centric research methodologies and a go-to-market strategy for their sales force to talk to consumers directly, have them voice their frustrations, concerns, compliments about their platforms so that their platforms can adapt quickly to relevant needs.
So as for the risks, we'd like to identify 4 main risks. The first of which being competition. Obviously, the competition here is that there's not really many barriers to entry in this particular space. Moving on to profitability and growth, the growth of this company is largely dependent on retention. It currently boasts a 100% retention rate. However, should people decide to go with a new player in the market or decide to go back to a Blackboard competitor, all of a sudden that would impact our projections. International expansion is the main, well, one of the future goals of the firm. Currently holding around 14% of revenue. Like I said, there's obviously huge expansion to be had. However, there is a general concern that should they push to have a more international expansion, that may put some kind of a dampener on their domestic expansion as well. And finally, the length and cyclicality of these contracts. Obviously, these contracts, the
or they're going to be gaining from Blackboard, Moodle, D2L, whatever it might be, maybe longer than what we actually expect. So the revenues that we may see from an uptake in subscription growth may take longer than we projected.
So as students who make use of Canvas on a daily basis, we decided to get a further understanding of it from a higher ed standpoint, namely through our wonderful university. So we got in touch with the Canvas administrator, who provided us with some clarity on USF's switch from Blackboard to Canvas, their billing method, and identified area for improvement. So we learned that USF was frustrated with Blackboard's locally hosted system and wanted to switch to a more SaaS platform instead. So they spent about a 4-month evaluation period consisting of students, faculty, and even IT staff, and finally decided to implement Canvas in 2013. Instructure bills its customers on a per-user basis. So in USF's case, they had to determine the number of full-time equivalent students and applied an individual price per person to that number. So with that, we were able to estimate around $430,000 to about $528,000 per year over the life of their 3-year contract, which they renewed again in 2016 because they were very satisfied with it. When we asked them about areas for improvement, USF noted that they would like to see a possible plagiarism software, similar to Turnitin, directly implemented into the platform, as well as Instructure solving their growing pain issues in the form of bureaucracy. And this is just to give you a visual representation of what Canvas looks like from the typical USF standpoint.
In order to evaluate this company, we built an EV to sales model. Because the company right now, it's a very high growth stage. It's a small cap technological industry representative. We can see that currently, as of November 3rd, the company was trading at multiple of 6.28 and surpassed the market cap of $1 billion. We project that the company will be trading in the future of approximately 6 times EV to sales multiple, and our price target is calculated at $53.31 a share by 2019. Implying a return of approximately 24% annually. This multiple can be revised higher because the management tends to give quite conservative guidance for the future growth, and also the company tends to have a strong record of surprising earnings quite positively on a quarterly basis.
Oh, and this is our executive team, who definitely adds a fun personality to the company. So we hope you appreciate this photo as much as we did. And on that note, we would like to open up the floor for questions. Yes, sir.
I guess you know that all of this stuff is really clunky, really difficult to use. In fact, I read your little case study on Blackboard, and I was sorry to see that because I think that's the next clunky one the University of Phoenix is going to try. And we've been through a half a dozen of these clunky things. And you mentioned that there are a few barriers to entry, which is true, but the switching costs are very high. And so what happens is each thing comes in with a lot of fanfare, and then when we realize how clunky it is, they say, oh, you know, we got so much investment, and they start worrying about sunk costs and things like that. And the reason I'm saying this is because you make a comment in here that free cash flow is irrelevant. It's not irrelevant, there just isn't any, right? So since you don't have any, you said it's irrelevant. There was a little glitch in the economy around 2000, 2001, when all these tech companies had no cash flow, and everyone said it was irrelevant. So you got to be really careful about that. And my fear is that the cash flow you show coming up over, like I think in 2018, they're miraculous to go from negative to positive on free cash flow. My fear is if they want to get around this clunkiness and stay in places like USF, which was a great place for them to be, they're going to have to invest more than they realize now in R&D and in customer support, and that free cash flow may never happen. And so I'd like you to comment on how you can be comfortable that it's going to happen, that this is somehow better than all the other guys who turned out not to be so hot.
So out of our entire group, I had those same concerns. I was actually one of the most pessimistic people about pitching this company because of Canvas's software and the problems that I had with it personally, overset text, losing my assignments, whatnot. But when I dug deeper into the company, I realized that they were the most proactive LMS provider out there. They use a go-to-market strategy where they talk to the people that use their softwares instead of Blackboard cultivating a platform and just giving it to the institution. Canvas or Instructure actually sits down with them and walks them through, makes sure that they address all the problems that they have with that software and try to make new tools to solve those problems, such as I think a few days ago, they came up with a new accessibility tool for people that that learn differently than normal students to allow Canvas to work for them better. So they're always innovating, they're always listening to their consumers, trying to put out the best tools for their platform to make it more user-friendly.
Okay, so 2 questions then. Did they solve the problems you experienced? And secondly, how are they going to maintain free cash flow if they have to keep solving problems like that?
So recently they implemented their third-party solutions, which you can link Microsoft, well, you can already link files from Microsoft Word, but you can also link Google Documents.
But did they
Google
solve the
Slides.
problem you were having?
That was the problem that I had,
Okay.
that I wasn't able to turn in my assignments, and when I tried to turn them in a different format, they got lost. But now
It wasn't the dog, you're sure? The dog didn't either.
Just to add on cash flows, we project that due to the non-cancelable contracts, the company has a really high margin on those products, actually. And those free cash flow will stay at growing rate. However, we project that the company will spend much more in the investments than they even project for themselves.
And still get free cash flow?
They will still generate free cash flow because of the non-cancelable, long-term, high-margin revenue. Serge?
So, yeah, I think you guys did a great job in looking at Canvas's growth, right? It's clear that the moat you guys are describing, these long-term contracts, it's not much of a moat, otherwise Canvas wouldn't have grown at the pace it has, and Blackboard wouldn't have lost the market share it has as quickly as it did, right? So, I'm curious what you think is so different about Canvas, right? That they're not just going to get displaced by the next competitor that's able to add whatever next site capability is going to be relevant in the next 36 months. Why is this Facebook and not MySpace, right? Just the latest stat.
So just to kind of reiterate that, just in case anyone didn't hear it, so just a general concern on the growth and how all of a sudden someone else comes in and doesn't undercut them and do what they did to Blackboard. Well, it's important to note that Blackboard actually sat on its laurels for a long time. The innovation, the push into R&D, the willing to take a go-to-market strategy and sit down with people who actually use your product and make it better was something that Blackboard really lacked. And we feel like that is something that Instructure has learned from. They've came forward and said that they don't want their R&D expense to drop below 17 or 18% in the long term, because they know it's important to keep making this product better and keep on top of the market. Because with an over 100% retention rate as well over the last 3 years, we feel like they've learned from a valuable lesson of Blackboard's mistake. And that's why we feel like that's where the difference is. They're not going to rest on their laurels and accept that they're going to be a market leader like what Blackboard was at 80% of market share in its peak before it got bought out by private equity. We feel they're going to want to continue to learn, continue to grow, especially through their corporate platform and international.
Just talking with Brandon, and I'm sure others that use Blackboard, Canvas is definitely leaps and bounds ahead of Blackboard. Definitely concur there. So it's really interesting. It's hard to wrap your head around the valuation. Company IPO'd in 2015, had a bunch of cash. Essentially used that cash to finance the, they're not making any money. So it's almost like after a certain point, really it looks like it's 2020, excuse me. That's going to be the break-even year when it actually starts becoming cash flow positive and really they stop on the overextending of expenses to generate margin to the bottom line, true margin and things of that nature. So again, I can't wrap my head around the valuation on this. It's just, so on the valuation aspect, what happened in November of 2016 when the stock went down, I'm going to say, looks like 40%?
November 2016, right?
November of 2016, a massive pullback. I know earlier that year, all SaaS companies really got punished. So just kind of looking for color there. I imagine that's around in earnings time. And then conversely, let's call it 2 times earlier this year, massive rallies. I'm sure those are timely around earnings as well. So very volatile in nature. This is obviously a high-risk stock. It's a small-cap stock. But I think you're doing a good job of laying down the conviction and the story behind it, but the numbers are a little too, they're divesting from really the true lines. I'm trying to find that inner lining.
So with November 2016, the reason they had a little fluctuation was because their marketing and their R&D expenses were a little higher than normal, according to analyst estimates. And that's because they were really trying to dig deep into their go-to-market strategies, their growth and their platform, like new platform tools and whatnot.
And to touch about the valuation, according to the industry, the small cap, high growth SaaS companies actually trade an average of multiple of 7. Oh, I apologize for that. Approximately multiple EV to sales 7 times.
Okay.
And so
You're being more conservative by using a 6 times multiple.
Right.
So okay.
We try to take a conservative approach, and our company has a history of positive surprise on quarterly basis because they keep growing faster than even management expects, and their margins actually improving, and they expect to reach 75% gross margin for 2022, and the rest of the margins will see a decrease just because improvement. I apologize, because there's only so much money you can spend on sales reps and marketing.
So going forward on the sales reps, so I really like that you did percentage breakout on the income statement as a percentage of sales. It really helps things. So this past fiscal year, they spent 55% of their SG&A expenses was on sales and marketing. You have that decreasing going forward. So I imagine they have like their equivalent of like a wholesaling sales team that goes out to these institutions to attract them, and how do they get paid a commission if things come to fruition?
Yeah, so with sales and marketing, they want to stay ahead of the line and keep spending on that, but one of the ways they track efficiency in the sales and marketing department is through a metric, the client acquisition cost, and their target CAC across the company is about 1.5, and their most recent quarter was about 1.6, so they're staying within their margin, and they have different selling techniques for their different segments. So they use reseller partnerships with their international and Canvas department, but with Bridge, they use direct selling because they want, since it's only 2 years old, they want to spend their time understanding the market and actually developing those relationships between the companies. So they do believe we have that going down, the margins going down, because they won't need to spend more per salesperson the more products they come out with. For example, Bridge Learn and Bridge Perform, they'll just have to give that sales rep another product to sell. So that's why we have that margin going down.
So they're not sacrificing the balance sheet, and ultimately what a lot of people are, all small tech companies, they're just concerned that people just care about revenue, like profits, we don't really care about that later. That's my concern with this type of stock. So, which is interesting.
Yeah, I had a question specifically on Canvas. You mentioned in your first slide that K through 12 was a huge opportunity for growth for them. And looking in your actual slide, it looks like the opportunity for growth you put at kind of $200 to $500 million for Canvas in the U.S. for K-12 and about the same amount for higher ed. It seems like most of the discussion today has been focusing on the higher ed. I was curious, one, as a former high school teacher, Canvas is way behind, about 10 years behind, and where PowerSchool, Haiku, all the ones that are fully integrated with Google and all the Google suite of products that most of the K-12 community is using and is pretty set on continuing to use. So I was curious to break down that further in the growth opportunities. How much is going to be K-12 versus higher ed, and what is it that Canvas thinks they can really do to compete in the K-12 space?
Okay, yeah, so I can touch on that. So virtually every higher ed institution has some form of LMS, right? Like the USFs of the world. We believe that the K through 12 market is relatively untapped because a lot of them are still shopping for a new product. So we believe that it's a high growth opportunity because now there are more, it's school-wide districts who are adopting the same platform. So they, in the most recent quarter, they landed the Utah Tele Network, where they were able to get a statewide deal for all K-12 districts, so with a growth in about 650,000 users, so that the entire state has a consistent LMS platform where they're able to collaborate more. Same thing with Wyoming, so they're landing more statewide deals where more districts are using Canvas to be more consistent. And there's a recent law in Virginia passed called the School Division of Innovation. So each district is going to put forth their innovation plan, and a lot of schools are now turning to Canvas to help with that because they believe that Canvas provides accessibility and the ability to create and collaborate for their K-12 demographic more. So that is why we have the K-12 growing as much.
I had a couple questions. You alluded to obviously the retention and the contract renewal rate, whether that's for Instructure themselves or the renewal rates or time periods on the contracts from their competitors where they're stealing market share. Can you speak maybe more to those details? Because I think that's, and maybe the assumptions you have in your models for those, because I think those are kind of the driving points as to whether they can set up some more recurring cash flow and continue to grow on that.
Yeah, sure. So they have a 100% retention rate across Instructure, and for Canvas particularly, have a 70% win rate against all other competitors in the US. So for us, we think that's where the growth's going to come because usually when they get someone in the door, they don't really leave based on historicals and the retention rate. And for the specific win rate against all other competitors in the US.
So as far as your model going forward, are you modeling 100% retention go forward?
I mean, we expect the kind of current trends to continue. The only issue we had modeling in particular, the numbers kind of dip off as much, is we don't know how the international growth will come along. Especially with Middle holding a huge amount of market share. What we do know is 35% of universities in the Netherlands and 75% of universities in Norway just signed over to Canvas. So there is growth there, and they really want to expand hard in that market. They feel that there's good opportunity there, but we don't really know what's going on there. We couldn't find a lot of reports, a lot of information. More of it was focused on the U.S., so that's why we took kind of more of a conservative standpoint.
Okay. And then on those
For the statements, just to add on that, is to have from 1 to 5 years in length, on average, more than 3 years. And because our projections are based on the next 5 to 6 years, we project that the trend will stay the same because USF, just as an example, just signed a contract that for the next 3 years, they're locked in for that price.
Yeah. Do you know where maybe the bigger, I know you mentioned they have a very diverse customer base, but maybe some of the key cornerstones as far as name, brand, and recognition that are using those, where they are in the life cycle of their contracts?
I don't know particulars on the Ivy League schools, but 7 Ivy League schools do use it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty sure, like most people, you look at the best and you want to strive to kind of be like the best. So the fact that those 7 Ivy League schools are there kind of helping us along. What we do know is that USF likes it so much that they renewed for another 3 years.
Right.
And further talks about revenue, like Mark said, so just contract details. They also have an ability to raise prices from 3 to 5% annually.
Okay. And so do you know if any...
For the competitors' contracts, unfortunately, we don't have that information, but I can definitely follow up.
With any of those 7 Ivy League schools, do you have any of those renewed their contract in the last recent years, or?
We can find out and follow up.
I just said that, I mean, it's an interesting growth story, but I try to look for what could go wrong, and it seems like they have all the momentum, and that's where usually you underscore maybe the risks associated with. Harvard says, yeah, we're cutting our ties, we're going somewhere else. Like that's probably pretty bad news press for them.
I know that one of the schools that they do have, Brown, actually did a very extensive 1.5-year vetting process for it. I read a case study on it. They had a 1.5-year vetting process for what LMS they wanted to use, and Canvas was the undisputed winner.
That's good.
Thank you.
Can you guys touch on how they recognize revenue?
Yeah, they recognize revenue on a percentage of completion method, and if that's not possible, they move into deferred revenue.
You have an accounting background?
I do not.
That's an accounting answer.
Financial analysis.
Good, good.
Alright, so that'll be all for today, and we're happy to conclude here. Thank you so much again for coming and spending your time with us. And we really appreciate your advice and opinions, and thank you so much. We look forward to our next